I watched Intent 1, and it's a hard watch in places because it's really gritty, which is how you want it, isn't it? It's about real life in a gang.
Yeah, and we wanted, I suppose, the Intent 1 was more about the undercover police officer sent to infiltrate a gang of robbers, and then he becomes torn between the gang who he develops a friendship with and the police. And so, but we wanted it to be unapologetically authentic, because I feel like I was in a film years ago called Kid Altered, and that film was only successful because it was like really true to what kids were like growing up in inner city London. And so we wanted, like, you know, to sort of keep it really real and really, you know, unapologetically street, because I feel like when things like that are made within the mainstream, it's diluted and we're given a version that's not necessarily true.
Well, that's what's so interesting, isn't it, Nicky, that you've got films like this which aren't mainstream in the sense that, I don't know, The Grinch is in the cinemas, and actually mainstream blockbustery films are getting, a lot of them are getting really boring now. So there's a whole other world that you're part of, which is getting much more exciting.
I think it's the same old thing in the blockbuster films. I feel like me and Femi as filmmakers, we show what's happening. Even though it's a film and it's drama, it's not real life. I feel like it's good that we expose young talent. Our main thing is about exposing young black British talent and giving them a mainstream platform, because they don't have a mainstream platform. There's not many films that you can see in the cinema with a black cast, giving black people opportunities to be in the theatres.
I know that one of the things you talked about is the fact that this is about somebody really embracing the being in the gang and trading and doing drugs or selling them. And that's quite unusual, because actually it is, when you think about it, okay, films always tell us that crime doesn't pay, and, you know, if you get in a gang, you're going to see the light one day. This isn't necessarily the way you run it. I
think the idea for us was like, you know, we were writing a script, and me and Nicky were like, well, there's all these stories about, people wanting to leave the life of crime behind and run away. Why don't we, like, posit what happens when someone that's part of that life wants a promotion? What happens if they want to go to the next level? And so we actually decided to completely delve into that world and try to... What we did, we transposed sort of our story. So, like, I started as an actor, and I decided the only way for me to get on in my career was to start making films, because acting opportunities were limited. So, and as filmmakers, we just transposed our experience of, you know, status anxiety, growing up in London and not knowing how you're going to make your money. We transposed that normal story onto this criminal, basically.
And I read an interesting thing you said about criticism of violence in the film. I just read it for the viewers here. You said, when James Bond is running around with his guns, no one says anything. But if it's young black men on screen, it's seen as very intimidating and violent. Is that right?
Yeah, I completely agree. I feel like young black men are sort of like, we're not allowed to show young black men being, you know, in this world, but James Bond could do whatever he likes. James Bond, like, you know, you see white actors all the time they're given a full spectrum of experiences. And I suppose for us as filmmakers, the challenge is to make a film like this, and then to go and make other films that portray, like, you know, rom-coms, and we've got children's adventure films, but, you know, we're just getting started. But however, I feel like, you know, there needs to be a diversity of black content, but that's not just going to come from us. That's going to come from the drama departments of all the big broadcasters in this country, and that's going to be a concerted effort by the full industry to capture the full black British experience.
One of the things that I just want to say is that, obviously, one concern would be that, is it easier to raise money as a black filmmaker if you want to make a film that includes black drug dealing, you know what I mean, kind of gang? If you wanted to make a rom-com with nice middle-class black people, is that much more difficult to sell?
Our first movie was about a black middle-class family. So Nicky and I made a film, It's a Lot, in 2013, and it was about a black middle-class family whose son takes their car to impress a girl at college, crashes the car, and has to think of a way to fix it before they get back from holiday, which is basically a black Ferris Bueller's Day Off or Risky Business. And we did that, and that was a British film, and that was made by me and him. And so we did that in 2013. So I feel for us, we want the liberation to be able to make whatever content we feel at the time, because, you know, our white counterparts never have to answer these questions about, oh, why did you make that? No one actually ever asks a white filmmaker, why did you make that? Like, you know,
why did you put the violence in?
Why did you put the violence in? Why did you do it like that?
But you have expectations put on you, don't you, by the fact that you are sort of ambassadors in a way, because you're making films from a black perspective, and I just that's a big pressure to put on you.
I don't think it's from a black perspective. I think we're just making films. We're black filmmakers, but our films are for everyone. They're not for just black people alone. They're for anybody who enjoys entertainment, who enjoys thrillers, who
But
enjoys
you've already
drama.
talked about it's a black cast.
It is a
Yeah,
black
it's a
cast.
black cast.
Black content is not necessarily for black people.
No, that's
Otherwise,
what I'm
all
saying.
black content.
That's what I'm saying. But when you write a movie, I'm just saying that years and years ago, I dated a model who was black, and one of the things he said to me was, I never get cast wearing anything other than either no clothes, virtually, or sportswear. I'm never cast wearing the suit. And I always remember that, because at the time I was in the fashion industry, it hadn't actually occurred to me. It's a long time ago now. And I just, I wonder whether it's more difficult to make a variety of content, or whether they say, oh, although the black character can be the drug dealer, the black character can be the whatever.
I think so. I
changing?
think that to a certain extent, but actually we are not responsible for that. As filmmakers, I've made content about a young black woman who was looking for love in London, and that's called Venus versus Mars. That was on another broadcaster. I made a program about a grime crew, a comedy. I made that a few years ago. So I think that accusation can't be levelled at myself and Nicky, because actually,
You
if you
guys
look
have made
we've made
much
a plethora of content that
but I
represents.
think that so much black-made content is often asked to justify why it does what it does, whether it's in the music industry or film or art or fashion or culture. Black content makers are always asked to justify their reasons for things in a way that other communities making arts and culture are not.